My name is Elena Reyes. I'm 27 years old. And the night my mother changed the locks on me, I had just worked a 14-hour shift in the ER, stitching up a 6-year-old who got thrown from a four-wheeler. I still had dried blood under my fingernails when I pulled into the driveway and stuck my key in the front door, and it didn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. Then I noticed 3 black trash bags sitting on the porch like somebody had taken the garbage out and forgotten it. Except the garbage was my life. My scrubs spilling out of a ripped seam. My nursing textbooks bent in half. A framed photo of me at my pinning ceremony cracked right down the middle. My brother was sitting on the porch swing filming me on his phone, grinning like this was the funniest thing he'd ever seen in his 24 years of doing absolutely nothing. He said, "Yo, she doesn't even know yet," and turned the camera so whoever was watching his live could see my face. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there holding a key that no longer worked to a house I'd been paying half the mortgage on for 3 years. Then my mother opened the door, just enough to lean against the frame with her arms crossed. She didn't look angry. She looked rehearsed. Like she'd been practicing this speech in the bathroom mirror. "Marcos needs the room," she said. "His girlfriend is moving in. You're 27, Elena. It's time." Marcos, my brother, the one who dropped out of community college twice, totaled 2 cars that I helped pay for, and hadn't held a job longer than 6 weeks since he turned 18. That Marcos needed my room. For a girlfriend, he'd been dating for 3 months. Have you ever stood on your own porch, locked out of a house you helped keep standing, while your family watched like it was entertainment? Because in that moment, something shifted in me. Not broke. Shifted. Like a bone that had been out of place for years finally snapping back where it belonged. I picked up all 3 bags without saying a word. My brother followed me to my car with the phone still rolling. Damn, she's really leaving. No fight, no tears, nothing. Cold-blooded. I put the bags in my trunk, turned around, and looked directly into his camera. I said, "Save this video. You're going to want to delete it later, but the internet won't let you." His smile dropped for exactly 1 second before he recovered and laughed it off. But I saw it. That little flicker of doubt. Before I tell you what happened next, and what those first few nights alone felt like, I want to know something. What time is it where you are right now? And where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I want to see how far this story reaches, because I have a feeling I'm not the only one who's been through something like this. I didn't call a friend. I didn't drive to some ex-boyfriend's apartment. I drove 11 miles to a 24-hour Walmart parking lot, reclined my seat, and sat in the dark listening to my own breathing. At 1:47 a.m., I opened my phone and checked my brother's social media. The live stream had 46 views. Not viral, but enough. Enough people saw a woman standing on her own porch holding a key that didn't work anymore while her brother laughed. I screen recorded the whole thing before he could take it down. Then I made a folder on my phone and named it Proof They'll Deny Later. Maybe that sounds calculated. But when your family rewrites history the way mine does, evidence isn't paranoia, it's survival. By morning, my phone had 11 missed calls, not from my mother saying she'd made a mistake. From my mother asking where I left the login to the electric company account. Then a text from Marcos. "Yo, where's the Wi-Fi password? It's not on the fridge anymore." Then my mother again. "Elena, the automatic payment for the water bill didn't go through. Did you cancel something? Not are you okay? Not where did you sleep?" Just a list of things that stopped working the second I walked away. I didn't answer any of them. The first person I called was Grace Alvarado, a respiratory therapist I'd worked beside for 2 years. Grace didn't do pity. She answered with, "Tell me everything, and don't make them sound nicer than they are." So I told her. The locks, the trash bags, the live stream, my mother's face. Grace was quiet for about 5 seconds, which for her was an eternity. Then she said, "Elena, how long have you been the mother in that house?" That question hit so hard, I had to pull over. Because she was right. Since I was 19 and got my CNA, I'd been the one keeping that house running. Groceries, utilities, my mother's blood pressure medication, Marcus's car insurance that I co-signed like an idiot, even the dog's vet appointments. I wasn't a dependent. I was the infrastructure. And they had just demolished their own foundation and called it parenting. Grace offered me her spare room for 2 weeks. I said no. Not because I was proud, but because I needed to feel the full weight of being alone, so I would never mistake that house for home again. Instead, I booked a room at an extended stay motel off Route 9 that smelled like carpet cleaner and charged by the week. The shower barely ran hot. The walls were thin enough to hear the couple next door fighting about whose mother was worse. Ironically appropriate. That first night, I sat on the edge of a bed that wasn't mine, eating gas station, peanut butter crackers, and I made a list on the back of a receipt. 3 things: housing, career, boundaries. Grace had always told me I worked like someone trying to earn permission to exist. She was right about that too. I'd been so busy keeping my family alive that I'd put off applying for the hospital's nurse residency program for 2 years straight. Every time I brought it up, my mother would say something like, "That's a lot of hours, Elena. Who's going to take Marcos to his appointments?" Or, "You already have a good job. Why do you need more?" More. Like wanting a career, instead of just a paycheck, was greedy. Like ambition was something I should apologize for. Day 3. Things escalated at the house. I know because Grace's cousin lived on the same block and was not shy about sharing. Apparently, the electric company sent a past due notice because the autopay was linked to my bank account, which I'd already frozen. My mother called 3 times that day. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail that started with tears and ended with, "I hope you're happy, knowing your family is sitting in the dark." I saved the voicemail. Not to be cruel. Because in 6 months she'd tell everyone I left voluntarily, and she wished me well. The voicemail would say, otherwise. On day 4, my charge nurse, Diana Torres, pulled me aside after a shift. She said, "I heard you're going through something at home. I'm not going to ask what." Then she handed me a printout. It was the application packet for the hospital's critical care nurse residency. She'd already highlighted the deadline and circled the salary bump. "You've been ready for this for a year," she said. "Stop waiting for somebody to give you permission." I filled it out that night on the motel desk with a pen I stole from the front office. It felt like signing a declaration of independence. Day 5. My brother finally texted something beyond a utility question. "Mom's been crying all day. You happy now?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back one sentence. She wasn't crying when she handed me trash bags. He read it immediately. No reply. That evening, Grace came by the motel with Thai food and a 6-pack and sat on the floor with me because there was only one chair and it wobbled. She asked me the question that changed everything. "If your mother called right now and said she was sorry, genuinely sorry, would you go back?" I didn't even hesitate. "No." "Good," she said. "Then stop treating this like something that might heal and start treating it like something you survived." By day 7, the story in the neighborhood had started to shift. Not because I said anything, but because my brother's live stream had been saved by at least a dozen people before he deleted it. Grace's cousin told me a woman from 2 streets over had shown it to her book club. Not maliciously, just that quiet way people share things that shock them. "Did you see what Carmen did to her daughter?" That was apparently the sentence making the rounds. And the beautiful thing about public cruelty is that the public doesn't always side with the person holding the camera. My mother called from a number I didn't recognize on day 8. Blocked my main number and tried to outsmart me. I picked up by accident. "Elena," she said, and her voice was thin. "This has gone too far." "You changed the locks," I said. "You changed the locks, put my things in garbage bags, and let Marcos film it." Silence. Then, "He shouldn't have done that. Not I shouldn't have done that. He. Always someone else's fault." "Where are you staying?" she asked. "That's not your concern anymore. You're being dramatic, and you're calling from a stranger's number because I blocked you." "Which one of us is dramatic?" She hung up. I sat there and felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger, not sadness, freedom. Like I'd been carrying a boulder uphill for years, and had finally just let it roll. On day 9, my application for the nurse residency was accepted. Diana told me in person, in the break room, while I was eating a granola bar. "You're in," she said. Full cohort, ICU rotation, tuition reimbursement. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but instead I just nodded and said, "Thank you for seeing something in me I wasn't allowed to see in myself." Diana squeezed my shoulder and said, "You were always this person, Elena. You just lived with people who needed you to be smaller." That same night, the unraveling hit full speed. Grace's cousin reported that Marcos's girlfriend had moved out after 4 days because the house was, quote, chaotic and weird. My mother had apparently gotten into a screaming match with Marcos in the front yard about the water bill, the internet, and a parking ticket that nobody paid because I used to handle all of that. A neighbor called it a whole mess. And on day 10. Oh, day 10. I woke up at 5 a.m. for my shift and checked my phone. 43 missed calls. 43. My mother, Marcos, my aunt, my cousin, even my mother's friend Dolores, who I hadn't spoken to in a year. And text messages. So many text messages. "Mom, Elena, please. Your brother is out of control. He's blaming me for everything." Marcos at 11 p.m. "This is messed up. Mom's acting crazy. I didn't sign up for this." Marcos at midnight. "Yo, can you at least tell me how to reset the router?" Mom at 1:15 a.m. "Elena, this family is falling apart." Mom at 2:40 a.m. "I can't sleep. Call me back. Please." Marcos at 3 a.m. "She's crying again. I don't know what to do." I read every single message. Then I put my phone down, made instant coffee in the motel microwave, and got dressed for work. Because I had patients who actually needed me. Not people who confused needing me with loving me. At the hospital, I moved through that shift with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. A motorcycle accident came in at 6:20 a.m., 31-year-old male, open fracture. I assisted the trauma team for 2 hours straight without flinching. When it was over, the attending looked at me and said, "Solid work, Reyes." 2 words. But they landed heavier than anything my mother had said in 27 years, because they were earned. 2 days later, my mother showed up. Not at the motel, at the hospital. She walked into the ER waiting room during visiting hours and told the front desk she was there to see her daughter. A tech I knew came and found me in the supply room. "Elena, your mom's in the lobby. She looks rough." I almost didn't go out, but I needed to see this for myself. Carmen Reyes looked like she hadn't slept in a week. Her hair was flat, her blouse was wrinkled, and she was clutching her purse with both hands like it was the only thing keeping her upright. She saw me in my scrubs, my badge, my stethoscope, and something in her face changed. Not pride exactly, more like surprise. Like she'd never actually pictured me here, doing this, being this. "Can we talk?" she said. "You have 5 minutes. I'm on shift." She glanced around at the nurses, the monitors, the organized chaos of an ER running smoothly, partly because of me. "I didn't think it would be like this," she said. "Like what?" "This hard. Without you." I let that sit. Because that sentence contained everything wrong with how she saw me. Not "I miss you." Not "I was wrong." Just "it's hard without you." Which meant she still didn't miss me. She missed what I did. "Mom, what exactly do you want? Come home. We'll figure it out. Marcos can share the room. Or, share the room." I almost laughed. "You locked me out for his girlfriend, and now you want me back as a roommate. In my own house, that I helped pay for." Her eyes filled up. "I made a mistake. You made a choice. There's a difference." I leaned against the wall because my legs were shaking, but I didn't let her see that. "You chose Marcos. You've always chosen Marcos. When he dropped out, I paid. When he wrecked the car, I co-signed. When he needed a room, I lost mine. And every single time, you told me I was the responsible one like it was a compliment, but it was just a job title you gave me so you didn't have to feel guilty." She started crying in the middle of the ER waiting room. Not loud. That quiet, crumbling kind of crying that happens when someone finally hears the truth they've been outrunning. "People are talking," she whispered. "They saw the video. There it was. Not grief. Reputation." "Yeah," I said. "People tend to talk when they watch a mother put her daughter's life in garbage bags." She looked at me like I'd slapped her. But I hadn't raised my voice once. That was the part that probably hurt the most. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't begging. I was just standing in my workplace, surrounded by people who respected me, telling her the truth in a tone so calm it left no room for her to call me emotional. "I'm not coming back," I said. "I found an apartment. I got into the residency program. I'm building something that has nothing to do with that house. Elena. And I need you to hear this clearly. I am not the glue. I am not the fixer. I am not the person you call when the lights go out or the bills don't get paid or Marcos can't figure out how to be an adult. That era is over." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Can we at least talk? Regularly? Maybe. Someday. But not because you need me to make things easier. Only when you're ready to treat me like a daughter, and not a utility." Diana appeared behind me. "Reyes, we need you in Bay 4. I looked at my mother one last time. "I have to go. Someone actually needs me right now." Then I turned around and walked back into the ER. I didn't look back, not because I didn't care, but because looking back is how they pull you in. And I was done being pulled. A week later came the thing that sealed everything. The hospital held its annual community health fair at Lincoln Park. Same park where my old neighborhood held cookouts every summer. I was assigned to the blood pressure screening tent because of course the universe has a sense of humor. I wore clean scrubs with the hospital logo, my new residency badge clipped to my pocket, and I spent the morning taking readings for elderly couples and answering questions about cholesterol. Around 11, I saw them. My mother at a picnic table. Marcos leaning against a tree looking at his phone. They hadn't spotted me yet. A woman I recognized from my old block approached my table. Mrs. Patterson, the one who used to bring banana bread during holidays. She looked at my badge and said, "Elena? Oh my goodness. You're in the nurse program? That's incredible, sweetheart." "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson." She leaned in. "I saw that video your brother posted. What a shameful thing. You didn't deserve that." I just nodded. "Because what do you say?" She got her blood pressure checked, told me I had a gift, and walked back toward the picnic area, where she stopped to talk to two other women, who all turned to look at me, not with pity, with respect. My brother noticed first. He walked over with his hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "Can we talk?" he said. "Go ahead." He glanced around like he was checking for cameras. Ironic. "Everything's been insane," he said. "Mom won't stop crying. The house is a mess. I didn't know you did all that stuff, like the bills and the groceries and the dog's meds. I thought that stuff just happened." "You thought it just happened?" "Yeah." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I know that sounds stupid." "It doesn't sound stupid, Marcos. It sounds exactly like someone who never had to do any of it." He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry about the video. Did you delete it because you were sorry, or because people made you look bad?" He didn't answer, which was an answer. "I forgive you for being immature," I said. "But I don't trust you, and there's a big difference." His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Somewhere behind us, my mother was watching. I could feel it. She never came over. Maybe because the public setting reminded her too much of the porch, or maybe because she saw people greeting me by name and title and realized she couldn't perform the version of the story where I was the villain. Diana walked past and said, loud enough for anyone nearby, "Elena's one of the strongest nurses in our new residency cohort. We're lucky to have her." My brother heard. My mother heard. The neighbors heard. That's the thing about quiet revenge. It doesn't come with a speech or a dramatic confrontation. It comes when the people who dismissed you are forced to watch strangers value you. It comes when the world treats you better than your family ever did, and everyone can see it. Later that afternoon, I sat alone in my car in the parking lot and did something I'd been putting off. I opened the screen recording of my brother's live stream. Watched about 10 seconds of it. My own face in the porch light. The trash bags. His laughter. Then I deleted it. Not because they deserved mercy, because I didn't need proof anymore. The consequences had already shown up on their own. My mother was learning that neutrality during cruelty is still cruelty. My brother was discovering that being the favorite doesn't protect you once the system collapses. And the neighbors, the ones who once saw me as quiet Carmen's daughter, now saw me as the nurse at the health fair who got thrown out and thrived anyway. I started my residency the following Monday. First day in the ICU, full scrubs, new badge, hands shaking but steady where it mattered. The attending said, "Welcome to the team, Reyes." And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged somewhere that wasn't held together by guilt. Grace took me out for tacos that night. She raised her glass and said, "To the woman who finally stopped setting herself on fire to keep everybody else warm." I clinked my glass against hers and thought about the house I grew up in, the locks that kept me out, the bags that held everything I owned, the brother who thought my humiliation was content, the mother who chose convenience over her daughter. Then I thought about the motel room, the instant coffee, the application I filled out with a stolen pen, the shift where the attending said solid work, the apartment I found on my own, small and quiet, and entirely mine. And I realized something that I want you to sit with. I used to think family was unconditional, that no matter how bad it got, you stayed, you absorbed, you carried, you forgave because blood was supposed to mean something. But blood doesn't mean anything if the people sharing it only value you when you're useful, if they only notice you when you're gone, if the first thing they ask when you leave is not, "Are you safe?" but "Where's the Wi-Fi password?" Some of you watching this right now are the Elena in your family. You're the one paying the bills nobody thanks you for. You're the one keeping the schedule, managing the medications, remembering the appointments, absorbing the anger, smoothing over the fights, holding it all together while being told you're not doing enough. And deep down, you know that if you stopped, the whole thing would collapse. Not because you're the problem, because you've been the solution they never acknowledged. So here's my question, and I want you to really think before you answer. If the people who are supposed to love you only start to panic after you leave, were they ever really loving you? Or were they just using you and calling it family? And the harder question, the one that kept me up at night in that motel room, would you be brave enough to walk away? Or are you still holding it all together because you're terrified that without you, they'll fall apart, and somehow that will be your fault too? I walked away, and yes, they fell apart, but that was never my weight to carry. It was always theirs.